Welcome, everybody, to the 2025-2026 Trachtenberg School Executive in Residence Program. I am thrilled to launch the program this year with Rosa Maria Castaneda, who is the founder and managing director of the 2045 Project, a fiscally sponsored initiative of the Amalgamated Foundation. My name is Denise Fowler. I'm the Director of Career Advancement and Alumni Services at the Trachtenberg School. I'm apologizing in advance. I have a horrible cold, so barely any voice, but wanted to rally through for tonight's program. What we will be doing is I'm going to be asking Rosa Maria a series of questions, and then we'll stop the recording and open it up for Q&A. I'm also going to include in this the reminders of we have some upcoming ones. Nish Ashara will be next week, who's the Chief Executive Officer of Equal Innovation. And then early in November, Clark Mercer, who's the Executive Director of the Metropolitan Washington Council of Governments, will be doing his meet and greet. Phenomenal alum of ours who we're thrilled that amidst all of what you're doing, that you're taking the time to be a part of this program. So the first question, Rosa Maria, that we ask all of you to do is just a 2 to 3 minute introduction about your current work and your career path. So just an overarching, and then we'll go into the other questions.
Sure. And I don't expect anyone to have read my bio, so I should probably introduce myself and my career path. And I'll get to what I'm working on today, but I'm Rosa Maria Castaneda, alum from, was it 2004?
I have 2006.
2006. Okay. Good. Okay. That's better. I just want to say it's really an honor to, as I was announced as an executive in residence, it's just an honor and a full circle, having had such a wonderful experience at the university and under the leadership of Kathy Newcomer. When I was there, she was both my professor and the director of the program. To have this opportunity this year to re-engage with the school and its students on the cusp of and on with the announcement that Kathy Newcomer is back as director, that feels terrific. Kathy Newcomer and I, if folks don't remember, if she might not remember, we went to Egypt together. We went to Cairo. We did a fellowship program in Cairo, where I was a student at the school. She created this amazing opportunity for some of us graduate students to go to Cairo and just have a sort of exchange between the Cairo University professors and students and our school. So that was amazing. And so we got to really connect that way. So I had to say that up front because this is just really special to do this at this time. And it's great to see all of your faces. So I'll keep it brief. I am Rosa Maria Castaneda. I am just recently, not even a year ago, but some months ago, launched this initiative called the 2045 Project at Amalgamated Foundation. I'll talk about that in a moment, but it's essentially the concept is we have a 20-year runway to a historic turning point in this nation. Next year is the 250th anniversary of the nation, but 2045 will be the year that, for the first time in history, no one ethnic group will have a majority in this country, and primarily on the growth of communities of color, and primarily on the growth of the Latino population in the U.S. And so that is something that I think, as a philanthropic leader and philanthropic strategist for over a decade now, that I think philanthropy and the donor community has an opportunity to prepare for that pivot point, and make it count, make it real. And I think that ultimately that turning point will be the true test of our democracy, and whether the nation's ideals will come to fruition, that all men are created equal in 2045. That is I believe, the true test of all of the principles that our democracy is founded on. That's for me, been a driving force in my career, is civic engagement, civic power, promoting democracy alongside economic justice and opportunity. And so I started this work to catalyze a conversation inside of philanthropic and donor communities, not just progressive, but any C3 and C4 funders, about what does it look like to seize that opportunity, and how do we create the conditions for that to really materialize in a way that we are a more democratic and just nation. So that is the work that I'm doing now. It's actually a sort of catalytic project, a project whose primary audience is philanthropic leaders and donors, and really grapple with where are investments going today, and are we setting the stage for equal opportunity for all. I've been in philanthropy for over 15 years, I think. The last 15 years or so of my career, I've been in strategic philanthropy at 4 of the major national foundations: Pew, NEKC Foundation, Hewlett Foundation, and Omidyar Network. This is really not by design, but that's just the trajectory of my life and career, that I have this sort of unique distinction of having worked at 4 of the major national foundations. I realized that's really interesting. I didn't set out for that, but for that to be the case, I feel like I have a perspective and an experience that now I want to turn around and say, having worked at 4 of the major national foundations, here's what some ways that I think the work needs to pivot and change for the future. And so to turn around and ground us in where are we historically, and how do our investments impact that. Before that, Denise, and then I'll close. Before that, I spent about 15 years or a dozen or so years at several of the major research think tanks in Washington. A lot of the usual suspects that I was lucky enough to work with: Center on Budget and Policy Priorities, CLASP, Center for Law and Social Policy, and Urban Institute. Again, not by design, but I just got an opportunity to work at the foremost think tanks in the country. And those were the extremely formative years where I was building skills, getting credentials, getting grounded in data evidence, connecting the dots across all policy areas. That was what was unique about those places. My career is not sort of in one singular area. I'm an environmental specialist, or environmental policy specialist. No, I've been able to connect the dots between from immigration policy to workforce to education to many other disciplines. So my career has been very multidisciplinary. And it's also not just been, I'm just a researcher, but I've had to be able to be in opportunities where I'm connecting the dots between research, civic engagement, power building, and policy development. So I think those are some unique things for me. And for me personally, I am a refugee to the US. I am born in Cuba, came to the US when I was 4, raised in Miami. And back when Florida was a purple state with a blue governor. So that's been an interesting journey. But I was an activist in Florida under Governor Childs, and involved in electoral work before I went to school and to get my credentials. Academically, I started at Florida State, went to American University to finish a double bachelor in sociology and gender studies. And then I did a master's at London School of Economics in research methods and cross-national social policy. And then I came to GW to do my master's. So I've gone on longer than you suggested, Denise. I hope that's okay, but that's been my journey. So
Well,
yeah,
you
I'll
had
pause
quite a
there.
journey, so it's understandable why you went a little longer. And I loved hearing the story about where you got the groundwork before going to where you've done. The next question we always ask is about what were the most pivotal moments in your career and how did that shape your leadership?
Pivotal moments in my career. So I think that I'll probably say two pivotal moments in my career. There are many, but two that I'll lift up here. One is I was um, I was at Urban Institute, and it's uh, you know uh, circular world right now where we're going backwards rather than forwards. But I was at Urban Institute, and under an administration, there was a ramp up of immigration enforcement, um, and that was an area that had not been studied, and at Urban Institute, we had a program on child and family policy, and we had a program on immigration, demography, and immigration of families, immigration in the U.S. For the first time, there wasn't any disciplinary work. There wasn't any sort of academic work or robust research on what is the impact of immigration enforcement on communities, on children, on families, and on immigrant families, or on public benefit systems, on secure any number of things. You really couldn't point to there's a body of work around it. We decided to develop some work to fill that gap, and it was so prominent. It was so much in the news, but we didn't have any sense of, well, what is the impact of this? What are the ramifications of it? But it was a pivotal moment when, having developed a research study at Urban Institute, which was a research institute that wasn't known for taking up this issue, and this was considered not sort of not a space that researchers that are nonpartisan would necessarily get into. So it was risky to develop work in this direction, but we felt it was important, and it was, in fact, our responsibility to do so. So we developed a study that, the point is, that study ended up, when we came up with the results, ended up having an impact on how immigration enforcement was done in this country, and humanitarian guidelines were developed for, it was from one day where we developed the research, the administration and the agencies knew we were about to come out with a study on the impact of the raids. And they knew what the findings were going to be in many ways, because it was a small circle. They anticipated that they were going to get some bad press about how they were going about doing the immigration enforcement work. And the day that within 24 hours of releasing it, they released humanitarian guidelines for how they would do the work in the future. So a pivotal moment in my career was to have that 24-hour turnaround in research to policy to real world impact. So that's what I'll say is one. We were at the press club. We got, and the research was featured in the Washington Post, and the announcement came that they were changing policy right away. That was astounding. That was a moment in your career where you're like, wow, it's all coming together. I wish that were the case today. as well. But at the time, we made a difference, and I hope we can go back to that. And I'll actually hold on the second story because I'll just, that's enough for that question.
Okay. The next question is on the flip side is how have you navigated? Has there been like one setback in your career and navigated a major challenge? And what advice would you give for people about how to overcome that?
Um, I think navigating a challenge in your career. So I think so. One interesting experience that I had is one of the experiences that I had was to be the director of a new racial justice program at the Hewlett Foundation, developed right after the George Floyd protests, and had the exciting opportunity to come in and develop a new body of work around racial justice at one of the nation's major national foundations. Um, I I think there are many ways to go about that work, um, but I'll be a little bit circumscribed. But I will say that when I felt um, that the institution and the desired direction of the institution didn't align with what we had initially discussed, and what was the opportunity before this, and what had been announced. You have to have a backbone, and you have to have integrity. That's a moment of vulnerability, and like, what is the courageous thing to do here? But it's going to be at a personal cost. It's a moment of, I think, standing in integrity. It's a moment of gracefully, saying this is not what we set out to do. So let's, you can do that work differently, but you can do it without me. I will be honest and say that that was a challenging moment in my career. And I say it because it was a vulnerable moment in my career. I can, some places are a good fit, some places aren't a good fit. And it's a huge opportunity, but it may not be a good fit, and the opportunity that you expected it to be. So to ease from that role into another role where I am advancing equity in the way that is a good fit with another major national foundation, which is what I did next at Omidyar Network. There are going to be times in your career when it's tricky, it's not easy, you're stunned, you're surprised. And I think that's when you realize who you are, and I'll leave it at that. But you got to know who you are when you step into the big roles, and you got to know what you stand for when you step into the big roles, and you got to know that how you show up matters, and so you can just continue your work, your mission elsewhere.
Fantastic. Thank you. Two more questions before we open it up to questions from the audience. What do you think differentiates you as a leader? And how has your leadership style kind of evolved and been influenced? What factors have influenced you?
Yeah, when you say that, the thing that I think about is, I'm a very sort of mission and purpose driven leader. I'll show up at a place, and that's how I lead, with rallying people around mission. And we can talk about leadership, but the thing that I think that most has shaped my leadership is, we're in DC, we're in Washington. There's a lot of transactional people. There's a lot of power hungry and ego. You see it everywhere you go. At the beginning of your career, it is, it's that's the thing that you experience when you come to DC. You go, oh my God, it could be really dirty here. It's dirty. People are ego. It's all ambition. And what I have looked out for in my career to shape my leadership is there have been several people along the way. Olivia Golden at Urban Institute was then the president of CLASP. Rob Santos at Urban Institute then became the census director and then resigned when Trump came in. These are people who I saw that it was possible to be a good manager, show up as a good person, be extremely skilled. Like no one can question your skills, and your credentials and your and be and really invest in nurturing talent of the people around you. So these are two people, and there are others who stood out to me in my career as they are holistic in their leadership. And I want to be more like that. I want to figure out how I could get better so that I look like them when I'm in positions, of power. And it's fun. It maybe sort of junior sounding, but I will honestly say I was looking for like leadership examples. So I think that leadership examples, if you look for them, they're there. And that's what I tried to model my career after. And also these are people that moved between different sectors. So it was a lot to model in the course of these people's careers and how they showed up for their careers and work that just really shaped my my course and what I modeled myself after.
We've already started to go into the last question. Is there one leadership lesson you wish you had learned earlier? Or one piece of advice that you received early in your career that's like, this has just been a touch point for you?
A leadership lesson. A leadership lesson. I will say that a lot of my early career was a little, it is, and I encourage it. You do it. It's my work will be so sound and so excellent. And I built credentials and I worked at the best institutions, and you get the validation that you need early on so that then the second part of your career just is easier. There's more flow. What's the leadership lesson in that? I think actually you are developing perspective along the way. Like you think you're building credentials, but you're developing perspective. And that is the most valuable thing to have. You are developing relationships. People call it networking, but it's relationships. And you're developing perspective. Those are two things that I realized sort of later in my career, and even now, that is the most valuable thing that I could bring to the table, is the perspective from the places that I've been, how I connect the dots, and bring my own voice based on my experience and the connection between my experience and my personal story and trajectory. That is my highest value that you bring to your career. So I think a leadership lesson is sort of, I don't know where the hell the leadership lesson is in that, but that is to me something that I realized about my leadership. I was like, oh, let me lead with my credentials. Let me lead with my, there's great places that I've been at. No, now it's like, that's just background. Now I lead with voice. Now I lead with it's just a more, I think, I guess I keep coming back to the word holistic, um, and voice. I think kind of you get your credentials so that you can apply your voice, and um, you can have the soundness of your work match the the change that you're trying to go after, in whatever you do. But your work is sound so that your voice could be developed more crisp, more clear, so that you can use your voice to advance your mission. So the credentials are in the background, the getting vetted is in the background, and at the forefront is who are you, what are you working towards, and your integrity and your voice. Somewhere in there, there's a leadership lesson. You're muted, Denise.
Literally, even when you unmute me, I'm still muted, but that was the perfect way to wrap up the meet and greet. So, Rosa Maria, that was, I love the honesty and the strength with what you just shared and the vision. So, I'm going to stop recording and thank you.